Hey guys, and welcome back to the Odd Socks channel. Today I'm doing another deep dive completion review. And what's a deep dive completion review, you ask? It's where I'll play an Evercade cart right through from start to finish, completing the game before I do a review. Now I can use as many save states and load states as I'd like, but I just need to complete the game before I do this review. And today's game is from the Evercade cart number 1 arcade from Technos Japan. It is Battle Lane Volume number 5. Battle Lane Volume 5 is a fast, brutal, and absolutely relentless arcade shooter from 1986. Developed by Technos Japan and published by Taito, the game throws you into a heavily armored motorcycle and dares you to survive an onslaught of tanks and enemy vehicles. This is a vertically scrolling shooter where you're constantly moving forward, dodging bullets and blasting enemies in a never-ending war zone. Think of it like Spy Hunter meets Commando, but way less mercy. You control a motorcycle that can move left and right, but that's about it. The screen is always scrolling, but you can't stop, meaning you have to react fast or die fast. You're equipped with machine guns as your basic weapon, and missiles. These are stronger, but limited in supply. The real challenge is dodging the enemy waves of trucks, cars, and soldiers that are everywhere. And they never stop attacking. And remember, this is a one hit and you're dead kind of game. That's right, no health bar, just instant punishment. With only 3 lives, you better hit that continue button because the game is super difficult. Okay guys, as we are taking a deep dive into this game today, we're going to look at the story, the sound, and the gameplay. But before we do this, I want to give you some interesting facts about Battle Lane Volume number 5 and their publisher, Technos Japan. Battle Lane Volume 5 was a bit of a developer and publisher collaboration. It was developed by Technos Japan Corp, renowned for titles like Double Dragon and Kunio-kun, but the game was published by Taito Corporation in 1986, showcasing a partnership between 2 prominent Japanese gaming companies. The dual collaboration meant that the chain of licensing agreements facilitated the game's reach across different markets. Battle Lane Volume 5 was actually released under a different title in some regions. It was known as Battle Lane. In some markets, particularly in Japan, the Volume 5 part of the title was a later addition for certain arcade releases, potentially to make it feel like part of a series, even though there was no other Battle Lane games before it. The game features a vertically scrolling shooter format where players control a motorcycle equipped with machine guns and missiles. This combination of vehicular movement and combat was relatively unique at the time, blending driving and shooting elements into a cohesive gameplay experience. The original arcade release featured a standard upright cabinet with a vertical orientation monitor. The control panel was designed for single-player gameplay, equipped with an 8-way joystick and 2 buttons for firing weapons, aligning with the game's action-packed mechanics. Battle Lane Volume 5 was released on the Technos arcade cartridge, released in December 2021. It included other games on the console, and we'll quickly mention them now: Mysterious Stones, Blockout, Combat Tribes, Double Dragon 2 The Revenge, Double Dragon 3, The Rosetta Stone, Mania Challenge, Minky Monkey, Battle Lane Volume 5. Let's look at some game data on this release. Battle Lane Volume 5 didn't generate a significant amount of mainstream critical attention upon its release, likely due to its niche appeal compared to other more iconic arcade games of the time. However, looking at various retro game forums and databases, here are some general impressions of the game. It had a unique concept. Critics appreciated that Battle Lane Volume 5 attempted to blend multiple genres, including shooting and vehicle combat, which was somewhat rare for arcade games in 1986. The idea of a motorcycle-based shooter added a fresh dynamic to a typical side-scrolling beat-em-up. Critics stated that the game was fun but repetitive, especially due to the fact that it followed a simple formula of navigating through stages while shooting enemies. Some felt it lacked variety in level design and enemy types, which could become tedious. The basic concept of dodging and shooting is fun at first, but it can feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again. The lack of complex mechanics or level variety left some arcade players disappointed. While Battle Lane Volume 5 had standard graphics for its times, they were not groundbreaking. The bright colours were straightforward designs, were functional, but not particularly advanced compared to some of the more famous arcade games of the period. The sound effects and music were decent, though enough, not particularly stand out in a crowded arcade market. Due to the repetitive nature of its gameplay and the absence of a deep narrative or complex progression system, critics noted that Battle Lane Volume 5 didn't have significant replay value beyond a casual arcade experience. They said it was reasonably fun for short sessions, but many players felt that it didn't offer the depth or experience or innovation that other games of that time provided. Battle Lane Volume 5 is notoriously difficult due to several key design choices that were common in arcade games of the 1980s, especially those designed to maximise players' quarters. Here's why it was so difficult. Enemies don't follow predictable patterns, meaning you must react extremely quickly rather than memorise the movements. This adds to the challenge since you can't rely on patterns to avoid the damage. Like many arcade games of its era, Battle Lane Volume 5 was designed to be extremely hard so players would keep putting in their money to continue. The difficulty spike ensures that even skilled players struggle to complete it in one sitting. It is beatable, but it takes a lot of practice, fast reflexes, and a lot of patience. You try to know where the enemies are coming from, but you end up having to move quickly, and knowing when to attack and evade are the only ways to survive this arcade gauntlet. That, and in this case for the Evercade, using lots of save and load states. Let's talk about the story of this game. The game is like the love child of a motorcycle chase scene and a classic shoot 'em up set in a crazy futuristic world where anything can happen. Think of it as a Mad Max meets Road Rash with a dash of explosive action and just the right amount of 1980s flair. So here's the deal. The world in Battle Lane Volume 5 has gone completely off the rails. It's like a dystopian nightmare where roads are now battle zones and the only way to survive is to ride fast and shoot even faster. Avoid everything trying to blow you up to smithereens. You're a mysterious motorcycle warrior armed with an array of deadly weapons, and your mission to survive the chaos and defeat the enemies hunting you down. The motorcycle is the real star of the show. Not only does it look awesome, but it's also got dual firepower, machine guns, and bazookas. That's right, you get to blow stuff up in style as you barrel through stage after stage of chaos. After surviving wave after wave of enemies, dodging deadly roadblocks and keeping your eyes peeled for those bazooka pickups, you finally make it to the end of the level. But hold on, you're not done yet. You've got one final obstacle standing between you and the next stage, the massive metal doors blocking your path. But don't sweat it, you're not just going to sit there staring at them. No, you've got bazookas and you're about to make those doors regret ever being in your way. The moment you unleash your firepower and blow up those doors, it's like the game is giving you a standing ovation. Boom! The doors explode in a fiery spectacle, sending debris flying in all directions, and you get to race through the wreckage onto the next stage. It's like telling the game, I've made it this far and I'm not stopping now. Why are there doors in this place? Who knows? You're just trying to get in there and defeat the enemies as quickly as possible. Let's talk about the sound. In the 1980s, arcade games were still in their early stages of sound sophistication, but Battle Lane Volume 5 managed to squeeze out some memorable high-energy audio. The game used a bass synthesizer-driven soundtrack with punchy effects and catchy loops. The sound effects like the machine gun fire and the explosions were all part of what made the game so engaging. The sounds played an integral role in building tension, signaling enemies, and punctuating the action with powerful explosions when the doors blew open. The explosive sounds were particularly satisfying as the game leaned into heavy bass thumping blasts to make you feel like your shots truly packed a punch. Weapon effects like gunfire had that classic 80s arcade sound with rapid fire machine guns and the deep thud of the bazooka making every battle feel intense. The soundtrack of Battle Lane Volume 5 is high octane, with fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping tracks that match the intensity of the gameplay. While the music wasn't as memorable or famous as some of the other arcade titles from the same era, it definitely complemented the racing, shooting, and explosion-heavy action. The music loops between levels, giving a sense of continuation, but also adding to the tension as you tear through each stage. The music for Battle Lane Volume 5 was developed by Technos Japan and was composed by Kazui Sawa. Sawa was responsible for creating the game's energetic and catchy soundtrack, which combined high-paced, synth-driven music that complemented the intense gameplay. His compositions were a key part of the arcade experience, helping to enhance the action and overall atmosphere of the game. Let's take a look at the gameplay. Battle Lane Volume 5 features 6 levels, each more challenging than the last. You start on the open highway, learning the basics with easier enemies, then move through the desert wasteland with tougher foes and obstacles. In Battle Lane Volume 5, movement is a critical aspect of gameplay, and it's designed to keep you constantly on the move. The game uses horizontal scrolling, meaning that while your motorcycle speeds forward automatically, you control the positioning of your bike on the screen. This means that instead of just simple forward movement, you have complete control of where your bike is within the playing field, allowing you to dodge enemy fire, avoid obstacles, and line up shots with precision. Unlike a fixed racing game where you're locked into one track, in Battle Lane Volume 5 you can switch between multiple lanes and react dynamically as enemies come at you from different angles. You'll also need to jump from one lane to another to avoid enemy projectiles or set yourself up for a counterattack. The one-shot deaths create a high-stakes atmosphere where every moment matters. You can't afford to make careless mistakes, and it's the pressure that keeps players fully engaged. The need to stay focused and maintain quick reflexes build up a sense of adrenaline that many players find exhilarating. Every dodge, every shot, and every second spent on the bike feels intense because the consequences are really that high. I picked up Battle Lane Volume 5 on the Technos Arcade Collection and I paid $44.20. But because there's 8 games on this cart, we can't say that I paid that. Let's just review it as I paid $5.53 for this game, meaning for me to actually get my enjoyment, I'll need to play the game for over 33 minutes. Well, I can successfully say I accomplished my goal. I played this game for 1 hour and 41 minutes. I had a play count of 7 times. I had a massive load count of 733 and a massive save count of 111. And that just shows how relentless this game is. That means I got my money's worth and I spent $3.29 per hour. After playing it, I'm rating the story a 4 out of 10. The core idea of the game is fun. You're riding a futuristic motorcycle, taking down enemies and blowing up giant missiles. Although the one-man army aspect is kind of fun and gives you that Rambo kind of vibe, it doesn't really explain why you're doing this. Yes, you're set in like a dystopian future, but why? And why are these enemies after you? Are you trying to go in there to save the world? A simple little explanation of why you're doing this would have actually had me engaged a little bit more. I'm giving the story a 4 out of 10, mainly just because at least it feels like you're progressing and the enemies are getting harder with the waves and you're actually trying to destroy something big at the end of the game. The sound for me also gets a 4 out of 10. The explosions and gunfire sound effects fit the action well, but overall the sound effects were just okay. They didn't really stand out or feel memorable. The intensity of the sound only added to the frustration, making me want to rush through the levels rather than fully enjoying the experience. The music also became a little bit repetitive for my liking, and it doesn't do much to enhance the atmosphere of the game. For the gameplay, it's getting a 5 out of 10. It is particularly designed as a quarter-guzzling arcade game, and you can definitely feel that as you play. The repetitive nature and reliance on quick reflexes make it challenging, but also pretty frustrating. It's the kind of game where you spend a lot of time dying and retrying, and while you feel like a boss when you finally complete a level, the constant setbacks can wear you down. It's tough, But that's exactly what the game was built for. Those arcade machines were all about making you want to keep putting in those quarters. For me, it almost felt like that Tom Cruise movie Edge of Tomorrow, where you're constantly going back in time, learning from your mistakes and retrying over and over just to get through a single level. You'll spend more time dying and retrying than actually feeling the rush of success, and after a while it can feel like you're stuck in an endless loop of frustration. Overall, I'm giving the game a 4 out of 10. Battle Lane Volume 5 doesn't quite live up to its potential. While it offers some fun moments with its chaotic action and cool motorbike, the repetitive gameplay, frustrating difficulty, and lack of memorable story hold it back. It's a classic quarter-guzzling arcade game, but it doesn't quite hit the sweet spot for me in particular. If you're looking for a challenging arcade experience, it might work for short bursts, but for me, it's more frustrating than fun. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another deep dive completion review. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share a comment below. I would love to know your Evercade stats on Battle Lane Volume 5 below, and also let me know what you would like me to review next. We'll see you next time on the Odd Socks.